And welcome everybody, it's Dan, hope you're well today. So let's talk about property sourcing, shall we? And in particular, let's talk about property sourcing this year and how to be successful, or at least as successful as possible this year. So obviously we're in times of turmoil, things are all over the place, aren't they? Let's face it. And there's a lot of uncertainty out there in the marketplace. Interest rates going up, or interest rates going down? Are they staying the same? Are mortgage rates going up? Are mortgage rates going down? What's happening to people who can't afford their own mortgage? What about all these people who are coming off fixed rates and moving on to variable rates as well? So, first of all, how can you take advantage of that? What's going on? How can you help yourself? I guess more importantly as well is how can you also help other people going through some hardship right now. Now, one of the things that you're probably aware of is that you can't do a sale and rent back. So you can't buy a house, for example, and then rent it back to the same person. They were made illegal a long time ago. But what you can do is you can buy their house and then you can rent them a different house. So you're not renting back the same house, you can just put them back into a different house in your portfolio. That might work as well. Or the other reason why people do property sourcing and why people sell their house below market value is that they've either been made redundant, they've been left a house, they're in credit card debt or mortgage debt or loan debt, and they've got people banging on the door, they're about to be made bankrupt, and actually selling the house that might be worth 100, you're buying it for 80, they might have a mortgage of 60. You buying it for 80 means I can pay the mortgage off and the 20 grand's worth of debt. You're actually saving somebody from going bankrupt. So there's lots of good reasons as to why you should be property sourcing, and I should put a caveat in there. There's also lots of bad reasons why you shouldn't be property sourcing. I remember being sat at an event once, and the guy on stage was bragging how he would get to the day before exchange of contracts and then he would change the deal and knock 10 grand off. And I thought, what a wanker. I mean, who does that kind of thing? And I whispered over to my mate Dave, because we've all got a mate called Dave, haven't we? And if you haven't, what's wrong with you? You only have a 9 feet from a Dave. Anyway, I whispered over to my mate Dave and I said, that's why we don't sell to investors. And the guy was like, sorry, what was that? And I thought, oh no, it's put me on the spot now. So do I just make something up or do I tell him what a twat he is? So obviously we told him what a twat he was, and then he was like, "Oh well, we don't always do that, and I give a lot of money to charity." And I was like, "Yeah." And I said to him, "That's why we don't rent to investors, people like you. What you're doing is wrong." Anyway, you don't have to be like that. There's a nice way of doing this, and it should be a win-win situation. It shouldn't be you just coming in and taking someone's house and taking advantage of people, especially vulnerable or elderly. You should be there to get a win-win situation. If you cannot get a win-win situation, you've failed, in my opinion, as a property sourcer. That is not what this business is about. So first up, the first thing that you can do to be a successful property sourcer, I spelt it wrong, you got to be compliant. Like, going back a couple of years, there were a number of people who are big on the property sourcing world saying, oh no, you don't need to be compliant. No, you just set up. And that's like, there's nothing further than the truth, right? You must be compliant. What you're doing is a compliant related activity. So you have to be compliant. And if you're not compliant, the boys in blue are going to come and stick you in a slammer. That means you're going to get in trouble, basically. And there are large fines potentially. So you've got to be making sure that you are compliant. You absolutely have to be compliant. Now, I just need to double check on something. I just want to go over to StreamYard to make sure that's working properly, and it is, I believe. Yes, it is. So I just wanted to check that. So you absolutely have to be compliant. Now, we've got a link down below. Compliance isn't cheap, by the way. It's like £1,000 minimum. But if you check the link out down below, we've got a thing. It costs like £99 a month, I think it is, through sourcing investments through one of our clients, one of our digital marketing agency clients, and it just happens to be a good complement to what we already do with the property sourcing. But you are acting as an estate agent, and so you have to go through money laundering checks with clients. This is just what you have to do. You have to be registered with all the things that you need to be registered with. And let me just talk about sharing compliance. I've spoken with Tina Walsh at length about this particular thing, and Tina's very good at doing what she does with her compliance as well. And you cannot share your compliance, which basically means that if you're not compliant but your mate is compliant, you can't do a deal through him and share his compliance. You have to be compliant as well. Now, can you do it? Will you get away with it? Hell, yeah, of course you can do it. Will you get away with it? Maybe. You can drive 150 mile an hour on the M62 in a Porsche 911 with the hood down. Not that I've ever done that. I wouldn't do such a thing. But you can do. Would you get away with it? I may have done. Would I do it again? Would you go to prison for that? I mean, obviously, I didn't do that. Obviously. But could you be sourcing property and not be compliant? Hell yeah. But it's illegal. Don't do it. Get yourself compliant. I know it's a pain in the butt, but if you want to be successful at doing this, there's no point in dipping your toe in the water when you're going scuba diving and going, oh, that's rubbish, that. I can't do it. Well, you've only dipped your toe in the water. Yeah, it's not for me. If you're going to be a property sourcer, go and be a property sourcer. Do it properly right from the start. Commit to the process. If you don't commit to being a property sourcer, you ain't sourcing anything, right? You've got to commit to this, and part of that commitment is by being legally compliant. So please go be legally compliant.